Hey there, and welcome to ZPro Tri Season 2, Week 3. It's the final race in our series this go-around. Athletes from all across the planet, best athletes in the world, getting ready to see who takes the title in our series. With me again to call the action is none other than Sarah True. How's it going, Sarah?
Oh, Matt, another week of racing. I can't wait.
It's going to be pretty good. I mean, I feel like, we're patting ourselves on the back here, but I feel like the series has been pretty fun. The racing has been really tight, and I think there's opportunity for a couple of the leaderboards to get upended here in the last day of the series. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that's patting us on the back. I think that's a testament to what the athletes are doing out there, showing up for every week, making it dynamic, exciting racing. I think that's exactly what we're going to get in week 3 when all the stakes are for the overall series. This is it. Everything comes down to what happens today. Yes, the last 2 weeks, they've been building up points, keeping themselves in contention, but we see who is going to end up on the overall leaderboard at the end of today.
Yeah, I mean, I think, over the 3 weeks, we're going to have 9 different races that, the athletes will be able to look back at, like, oh, man, was it, the second race of the first week, I should have done this, or like tactically, there's so many different ways the racing could have gone. It's going to be cool to see kind of how it comes out today, and I'm super excited to do that. Now, it wasn't only the pros that were able to participate in the series. We also had community events as well, which I think was pretty cool. And we had over 4,000 athletes participate in the series. And our winners, our overall winners were Luke Gilboa at Canada. He had 260 points. And Sarah Hyatt out of the United Kingdom, she had 261 points. So congrats to you two. And for those of you that weren't able to participate in the community events, keep your eyes peeled for series down the road when we do some more ZPro Tri Series, that there'll be community events along with that. So get ready to participate in those. And also for those that haven't seen, we're talking about 9 races and different rounds in the series. If you haven't been able to tune into weeks 1 and week 2, might be a little bit confusing as to what we're all talking about. So take a second and look at how this all is going down. Why have one race when you can have 3? Am I right? Every week, both men and women will race over 3 races each. Points are won for each race. The most points after 3 races wins the round. Simple. Every week we'll start in Crit City with a points race. There are points to be had every lap. 3, 2, and 1 at the KOM. Then 20 through 1 at the finish line. Most points in race 1 wins the race and carries their points forward to race 2. Race 2, the scratch race, on a different course every week, and the rules are simple. Only arrow power-ups and first across the line wins. Points are awarded 20 through 1 in finishing order. Finally, race 3, my favorite, a non-drafting hill climb mass start TT. Only on Zwift can the race of truth work like this. Everyone starts together, but they're all doing their own TT as we switch the draft off and everyone gets a feather power. Pace it right and come out on top. First across the line wins. Again, it's 20 through 1 awarded at the line. The rider with the highest total points after 3 races wins. Yeah, so there you go. If you didn't know, now you know. There's a lot of points up for grabs. And again, there's been a ton of points already awarded throughout the first 2 weeks. And in the end, it's pretty tight. We'll get to the leaderboards here in a little bit. But I'd say that there's definitely a lot of room for things to change in both the men's and women's races. And Sarah, I think the race that has been the most exciting tactically has been the crit. Would you agree?
I think it's been really interesting to see athletes trying to go for broke for every single sprint. But then you have, for example, Paula Finley and Mike Phillips last week, Paula Finley week 1, they went all in for the last sprint, got those 20 points. So do you try to go for everyone, grab the points where you can, or do you go all in for the final sprint? So it's been interesting from that standpoint to see the different tactics that athletes take.
Yeah, it certainly has, and that was unexpected to see Mike the last time kind of get that like 1.5-second gap. It was pretty cool. So let's take a look at the course. We're doing the downtown Dolphin in Crit City. As you see, the riders will go around clockwise the course. The preem position there at the top of the hill you'll see is where the sprint points are up for grabs each of the 6 laps, and then 20 points up for grabs for the finish sprint. And again, sorry, the preem lap point sprint is worth 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point for the first 3 across the line. So that's the course that they're going to be racing on. And again, it's been tactical each week, but most certainly this week is going to be very tactical because especially for the first placing in the men's race, which is up first, James Kinema is only 3 points behind our leader, and he might go for broke on trying to get as many points in those 6 laps, or maybe he'll be the first to go for a flyer and take it all the way across the line.
Yeah, we haven't yet seen a successful breakaway on this stage, but I think this might be a good week to do it. If you're in the middle of the rankings and you're saying, okay, I'm going to go for broke. I'm just trying to get as many points as possible, and you have a successful breakaway today, it might be worth the risk. I'm not racing today. I'm just sitting here in my chair, so it's easy for me to chime in with that. But we're going to see a bit more risky behavior from athletes in terms of just doing something potentially out of their comfort zones, because big reward at the end of the day if you move up the leaderboard significantly. And if you're looking at the rankings as they are, it might take something bold like that.
Yeah, it certainly would. And again, we love to see people go for broke. So athlete, it's on the screen right there. One that went for broke in the end and got that gap, as I said, was Mike Phillips. But also on the screen, James Kinema. He definitely might throw Hail Mary, so to speak, and try to get a lot of points here in this first race so he can overtake Anthony Costas, who has seemed pretty perfect so far in the series with 20 points each week. And also Ronnie Schildknecht is one that hasn't necessarily shown himself in the series as much as I would have expected. He is great cyclist in general, very powerful, so I think this crit could suit him well. And Joe Skipper is one that has been aggressive all the way through this series. Other aggressive riders, I would say, if we had that award, it would have gone to Tim Reed and Martin Van Riel for their move in the second race last week. They stayed away for a long time only to get caught with about a K to go. Made it super exciting racing, though, that's for sure. And then last athletes on the screen, Tim Don. He's one of our favorites at heart, one of your co-mentor for the ZA Tri team, and he's been hanging in there well. He could find his way into the top 10 if he has a good result. So here it is, Sarah. This is what our points look like going into the last round of the series. 3 races to go. Anthony Costas is up by 3 points. So James Kinema has to win, and Costas has to be worse than third place to be even on points. And then Mike Phillips is right there. Mike and Ben Canute are going to have a tight race there as well. But if you look at that, Jackson Landry is right there, as is Lionel Sanders. So a lot up for battle in those top 5 positions, let alone the top 10. The men are out on course, so we're going to join them. There they are with none other than Anthony Costas in the field. They have not gotten to a sprint yet. So first one, we're going to catch that first sprint. Sarah, call it. Who's going to win the first sprint?
Ben Canute. Put me under pressure here. I don't know.
Yeah,
Ben's pretty feisty. He likes to go for those sprints, on these crit stages. I think it would be nice to see that the young athlete go for some of the sprint points here. Who's your pick?
I'm going to go, it might be Ben Canute. He's coming, so Ben Canute is at the front. Oh, it's Anthony Costas. My pick was Anthony Costas, and he got it.
Man.
Imagine that. Just kidding. But no, I think Anthony, we had been talking off air that Anthony had the ability, I think, in this week to play it defensive if he wanted to. He could kind of just sit in and see what happened and make other people take the lead or the win away from him. But it looks like he's going the opposite, what's worked for him in the past, be really aggressive. If he gets a ton of points in this first race, he can kind of just mail it in after that. So he's aggressive. He obviously had a warm-up in there already today. Now he's cruising at 350 watts, 102 RPMs in the middle of the group, kind of recovering from that effort. But Anthony Costas with first across the line. It was Costas, Canute, and Jackson Landry for those first 3 across the line. So there you go. You almost had it, and I didn't pick Costas before, so we'll give you credit on that pick, Sarah.
Yeah, Anthony's really been impressive this series. If you watched the last series, you saw him throwing down on Zwift. This is an athlete who understands the game. He understands the virtual racing, but he also, physiologically, he has a range of ability. He can do the high power stuff. He can do the grinding, and this is definitely a platform that suits him well. Joe Skipper is up on screen right now with his very fun lights. I'm very envious of his basement. Keeps it fun. I think it distracts him from a little bit of the pain that he puts himself under. This is one of the toughest athletes out there. Always a joy to watch him race.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say he and Emma Pallant have the most exciting rooms when they're racing. They've got the kind of the disco ball going, and they're both pretty aggressive. So maybe that's what I need in my Zwift racing is a disco ball, and I'll bring it up a notch.
Well, I don't know about that. And you were talking about Ronnie earlier. This is a great athlete, very strong in the bike. It really is a testament to how deep these fields are that we aren't seeing somebody like Ronnie, every time that we have a stage. And it looks like Tim Don at the front pushing the pace.
Oh, yeah. Tim Don trying to go for those sprint points. It looks like he might have just gotten Ben Canute come over the top of him. We'll get the results here in a second. There we go. So, yeah, Ben Canute with 3 points, Tim Don with 2, Costas with 1. So Tim going pretty early. I think he found the momentum when he was moving through the group and just jumped early and got a fair bit of points. And again, he is fighting for top 10, which is important. A lot of athletes are going pretty hard for that, as I think it looks like Joe Skipper is kind of sneaking off the front. But Ben Canute is being aggressive, and we'll have to go back and look at results here. But Ben Canute is sitting pretty tight right now. He's in fourth place.
He's in fourth.
Yeah, just a little bit behind in third. So he has the opportunity to move up in the podium position, and he's being aggressive to try to take that.
Yeah, Ben Canute in real life is he's an aggressive racer. He just enjoys going hard. He enjoys throwing things into the mix, making people chase him. So this is definitely his style of racing. He comes from a short course ITU background, is now doing a lot more 70.3 racing. And, you know, he just enjoys playing bikes, and whether it's virtual or in real life.
Yeah, and I think he certainly does, and we love watching Ben be aggressive in his racing. But it's worth noting that it is tactical, right? And the one person that is certainly paying attention to what Ben's doing right now is Mike Phillips, who's currently in third place, and he's the one who got the sprint finish last week. And we saw in the women's race, Ruth Assel have a great race, get a bunch of points in that first race, but then get dislodged in the second race. So I think Mike Phillips might be looking at Ben Canute and being like, oh man, he's burning a lot of matches. I'm going to have to take an opportunity to try to dislodge him, or, you know, get more points in another part of the race series here today. But right now, this front group moving along pretty well. We see Sebastian Kienle take a turn in the front. Are you surprised? I'm excited to see Sebastian has 2 weeks of racing in him, and I'm expecting to see something out of Sebastian here today. What do you think?
I think that's something you can't underestimate, is familiarity with this platform. I know a lot of these riders, they will train on Zwift, but not all of them race on Zwift. And we just went through another sprint line, didn't we? And it was Jackson Landry. I did not see that one coming. Jackson, excellent cyclist, very strong. Anthony Costas in second. So Anthony's just slowly accruing these points. You know, he doesn't need to necessarily go for them, but he is stacking them up, doing a great job of getting these points, keeping himself in definite contention for the overall series. But James Cunnama, third place on that sprint. He is not going to let Anthony walk away with this win overall. He's going to fight tooth and nail to be able to keep himself in contention.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, sorry we haven't drawn attention to it yet, but the group has split. And so there's two groups here, and it's pretty important and actually pretty impactful on the series as to what's happening right now. Henrik Scum and Aaron Royal are off this.
Okay. Yeah, if we take a look right now, Mike Phillips is riding 530 watts. Wow, this man, he's strong, he's powerful. He is definitely somebody to be watching for the future, doing an incredible job at the front, driving the pace. If we end up with a break in this field, that could definitely change the dynamics in our overall racing.
No, it certainly can. And Mike Phillips is trying his best to get across back to the group, but that's going to be a tall order for sure. But yeah, very, very impactful. And Ben Canute being very aggressive early is going to end up paying off, because the man he needs to jump to get in that podium position is, he's on the defense.
Yeah, Ben Canute, he's an aggressive racer. He's a smart racer. So right now he is sitting well in the overall series. He's been incredibly consistent. You know, it's sometimes these athletes, they'll be aggressive in these early stages and they pay for it, but he has just been, over the 6 stages we've seen so far the last couple of weeks, he's done a great job of really moderating his effort and understanding how to pace himself over the 3 stages. You know, it really is a skill to be able to understand the requirements physiologically and be able to play to your strengths, which is exactly what these athletes in the top 10 are doing very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's breaking up even more. I mean, once you get a group of 10 that's broken away, then there's ability for them to be even more aggressive and split things up even more. So right now, there's a group of 4 with Kunema, Casas, Laundry, and Canute now just a little bit in front of the rest of the group. Looks like it all has kind of come back together. But worth noting, Sarah, that there are a lot of vulnerable athletes. Obviously, a group that's off the back, like Mike Phillips and that group, they're not coming back. That's just not going to happen. But in this group of 10, there's certainly some athletes that might get dropped with all these lap sprints continuing over that KOM.
Yeah, I think these athletes are in the front group are pretty pleased with themselves, putting themselves, they're definitely in a nice position right now. We are lap 5 out of 6. As they say, the cows can smell the barn. They know the ending is right in sight. They have to keep on pushing, keep on driving, making sure that they maintain that gap. Because if they're able to do that, they still have to sprint, but maybe they don't have to go quite as hard and really, really dig to be able to eke out for points. Fewer bodies means fewer competition at the finish line if they're able to stay away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's more of an opportunity for one of those athletes, like if a James Kunema can find a time where Costas maybe is in the back of the group. With a smaller group like this, it's easier to theoretically be able to jump away and to go solo, right? So there's a lot more kind of available tactically when you're in a small group like this.
Yeah, it looks like right now everybody's just continuing to drive, continuing to push the pace. You have to remember for a stage like this, you are trying to balance your own effort and exertion and really want to stay in the draft, but they also know they have an opportunity to really put the hurt on the men behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben Canute opened that one up, but it looked like Costas came around right before the sprint line at the top of that climb. So yeah, it was Costas, actually Kunema in second there, Ben Canute in third. So Canute is absolutely racking up the points, and he's now putting a bid up to maybe jump Kunema if he has a good second 2 races. Right now, Mike Phillips is in a bad spot when it comes to points, considering Canute already has 8, and the best that Phillips is going to be able to do is get 11th place in the finish sprint. So Ben Canute is going to earn a ton of points, but right now Kunema needs to make sure he stays aggressive as he chases Costas, because Canute is going to be right on his heels as well.
Yeah, there's a good chance that group behind, they thought, oh, it's going to come together. That's generally what happens the last couple of weeks. There were attempts at breakaways, nothing stuck. But here's the thing about breakaways. You keep on trying till it sticks. Sometimes they do, and when they do, the payoff is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the proof is just the fact that this group has split to 2 groups of 10. That persistence of those athletes being aggressive early has dislodged some of the best competitors on the planet off the back, and those athletes are now 22 seconds behind. There's a group of 6 chasing 22 seconds behind, but right now we're looking at this front group. We're on the final lap, so there's going to be one more sprint, Sarah, and one more the finish line sprint at the end. So is there somebody in this group that hasn't shown themselves in the sprints that you think has the capability of getting away possibly or winning this finish line sprint?
I feel like Martin Van Riel's been pretty quiet today. He enjoys being a little instigator when it comes to breakaways. I think I have a good feeling about him today. He's been doing more each week. Last week, stage 3 really saw him shine. But just knowing the rider he is, the kind of athlete he is, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him going for the finish line sprint there.
I think that's a good call, and they're on the cobbles, so that's how you know it's really close to the last intermediate sprint. And it looks like Jackson Landry is going for it. Anthony Costas being really aggressive early. Obviously Ben Canute as well. They're up near the top, and right underneath the banner, it looks like it was Costas, Canute, and Landry. We'll get the official results here in a second. Yep. So there you go. Costas with 3 more points, and what's most notable, in my opinion, is the fact that there's no James Kunema in those top 3. So he's continuing to lose points to Anthony Costas. And a counterattack looks like Joe Skipper trying to go off the front, trying to get that solo breakaway. 500 meters to go. Joe Skipper has about a half a second, and in this downhill rolly section, it's going to be really hard to stay away from the group, but Joe Skipper now with 2 seconds over the group, one of the most aggressive athletes we've seen. No doubt he's using those fancy lights in his Zwift training room to motivate him, but right now he has 2 seconds with 250 meters to go. Joe Skipper on the solo breakaway on the crit around the last corner. Just a few meters to go, and the group is coming. 1 second. Joe still has a gap, but at the last second, Anthony Costas comes around with the entire group in tow. Absolute heartbreak. Joe Skipper pipped at the line, it looks like, by Anthony Costas, but we'll get the official results. Oh, man, Anthony Costas over Matt Hansen, Jackson Laundrie, Ben Canute, and Joe Skipper ends up in 8th place in the sprint, and he was so close, Sarah.
Joe Skipper, you may not have won the stage, but you're number one in our hearts. That was aggressive. What was that? 600 meters out, just going for broke. You got to respect an effort like that. But it really just demonstrates how timing is everything when it comes to these sprints. Now, these men were pushing 10 watts per kilo that last bit. They were riding hard. They weren't going to let Joe Skipper just ride away with it by any means. But Joe, well done. Thank you for making it exciting for your fans.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that is amazing. There we go with the finish line points taken. That's Anthony Costas with 20 points. He gets the lion's share. And the most notable thing is James Kunema just with 15 points. So he's pretty far back in that chase. But for me, the big mover is Ben Canute. He's pretty much solidified a great opportunity, at least, for him to be able to jump up to 3rd place. But Sarah, with him going with 600 meters to go, it's like almost impossible, especially in a downhill rolly section with a group chasing you. So, yeah, Joe Skipper, we wouldn't expect anything less. Him and Martin Van Riel are just so aggressive in their racing. So next race has got to be Martin that does it. But Joe's going to give it again. There's Mike Phillips, got his 10 points, the most points that were up for grabs where he was in that split. But that's kind of the story in that first crit, in my opinion, Sarah, is Mike Phillips kind of losing out. You can see in the total points now, 35 after the first race for Anthony Costas, Ben Canute in 2nd, Jackson Laundrie in 3rd, and as I said, Mike Phillips not even on the first screen, so that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, Ben Canute and Jackson Laundrie, we saw them going for a lot of the sprints along with Anthony, and it's really going to pay off because look at the number of points they've gotten. That's going to help them move up the leaderboard today for the overall series.
Yeah, and Jackson Laundrie is actually probably going to move up and get past Mike Phillips as well, unless Mike Phillips does something pretty impressive in these next 2 races. But man, I did not see that coming. It's our first, I think, genuine attempt at a long flyer in the crit, and of course, it was Joe Skipper. And I was hoping it wasn't going to be heartbreak, but it certainly was heartbreak.
Yeah, I'm sure he's feeling that effort, but Joe, well done. Spin out the legs. Let's see you go again, because you got to love an effort like that.
Oh, unbelievable. And here we go. We can see the action from some of these intermediate sprints. See, the athletes were getting after it, and certainly the athletes that had the most to gain, Laundrie, Canute, and those. There's that finish line sprint. And it was just, Sarah, that must have been 50 meters when Skipper finally got caught and ended up in 8th place. But of course, Anthony Costas playing the patient game. He saw him slip off the front, and he decided to stay in the group and not do anything rash. And they caught him at the last second. It shows that tactics certainly are important, and they pay off if you know how to use them correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not surprising that the men who've been doing consistently well are doing well today. They understand the demands of the race. They've learned when to go, when to be a bit more conservative. And I think there's definitely something to be said about understanding your competitors, understanding the courses. This is a course they were familiar with. We were here week 1, and having that familiarity with the platform and each individual course definitely pays off.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious. We didn't get sight of when that split actually happened, so I'm curious kind of what sent them off. I think it was just a counter after one of those intermediate sprints. It looks like lap 2. But great racing from the men. But next on course are the women, and the racing has been tight with this high quality field. And Emma Pallant has been having a great performance and been really, really aggressive in the series. So she needs to keep that up if she wants to win the overall after today, but a couple races left to do. For me, Annabelle Luxford has been, I shouldn't say a surprise, but one that I've been stoked to see race so aggressively. Again, she's up pretty early in the morning to be able to race with us. We've been stoked to have her, and she is up in the leaderboard as well and has a great opportunity to continue to move up today. And Sarah Crowley with us again, as well as Laura Phillip, and both of them have had good performances. Laura definitely showed herself in the time trial last time. And then we've got Holly Lawrence and Lisa Norton. Lisa has had great performances in the series so far, and one that could surprise with one of those breakaways, as she has a bunch of obviously triathlon ability, but cycling specific ability as well.
Yeah, Lisa, she's a Olympic silver medalist, ITU world champion, but on the roads, she is a time trial Swedish champion and has represented Sweden at the UCI World Championships. So great cyclist, great triathlete. We are fortunate to have so many strong women here today.
Yeah, and very, very tight at the top with Melanie Moore in first place over Emma Pallant. And Emma had one race last week where she kind of got dislodged and didn't get as many points as she would have hoped. So she's playing catch up a little bit, but 1 point separates those two women. And Ruth Assel, no surprise that she is the aggressive one on the first lap, getting after it. And it looks like she was able to get that first sprint point. So we'll take a look and see how we did. Sorry, that was we're on second lap already. Women have been getting after it already, and it looks like Ruth was the first one. Sorry, total with the sprint points as we join is Melanie Moore with 5 already, Ruth with 3, Laura Siddle with 2, and Emma Pallant with 2 as well.
Yeah, Melanie Moore, she's been very consistent this series, really has been shining on stage 3, but done well overall. She's just been chipping away. I think she's a very, very strong contender, obviously, for the overall series. It's going to be a nail biter, though. We have a number of women who could potentially win the overall series today, and that's what makes this 3-week format so exciting, is that really it's going to come down to every single point today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's been super aggressive, and the amount of personalities, as you said, that are kind of taking control of the races at different times. Like the leaderboard has just changed so much. Ruth has been one that's been very, very aggressive, and I think she's going to continue to do so, especially in this first race. It paid off for her this last week as far as the points she got. Backfired a little bit in the second race because she got dislodged and ended up not getting that many points. Now our second course this week is a Seaside Sprint. There's not much chance for her to really be vulnerable at all. I think that's going to be a bunch sprint to finish. So I think Ruth is going to continue to be as aggressive as possible at the front of this race as she tries to move up in standings.
Yeah, it's important to realize that these athletes come in with different loads in their body. So Ruth came in to week 1 along with some of the other athletes, having just done Ironman Florida. An Ironman will take a little bit out of your legs, not surprisingly. So to see her last week with another week of recovery, really go from probably feeling a little flat to being pretty aggressive on stage 1. We can only assume that week 3, a little bit more rested, a little bit more excited to really get some points and move up the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And right then it was Emma Pallant that was the aggressor early in that sprint, but it looked like Melanie Moore came over the top there. But right now it looks like Ruth Assel is trying to get a little bit of a gap as the group behind is spreading out. They were all together, but right now there are some gaps The field of 18 athletes is separated by over 5 seconds, and in a crit that can separate here pretty quickly. So Ruth is using that aero power up, trying to get away from the field that's chasing. With this downhill rolly section, it's not likely that she's going to be able to stay away on her own, but she's put herself in a position where maybe somebody can jump across to try to join her. But right now, she's got 2.5 seconds. That's nothing to sniff at. And if she continues to hold this, she can, at minimum, get the next sprint points, the lion's share of the sprint points. But right now, it looks like that group is working together pretty well. They're 4.5, 5 watts per kilo, 2.5 seconds behind Ruth, as Ruth pushes 5.5 watts per kilo, trying to stay away. But Sarah, looks like she's going to get brought back.
You got to give her credit for trying, though. I mean, like you said, you don't know whether or not you can also dislodge athletes. So if she were to cause a separation in the fields, then you could see a situation like we had with the men, with somebody like Mike Phillips all of a sudden moving down in the overall leaderboard contention.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be aggressive. Nothing huge is going to happen unless somebody takes risks to either be, aggressive on themselves or play a little defense and try to dislodge some other people. And someone who's been great tactically in this series, and obviously with her legs as well, is Melanie Moore, wearing number 1 for a reason. She is in the lead, and she's dominated our series in the past, and she continues to kind of always be there. You don't ever really see her missing out in any of these big moves, Sarah.
Yeah, Melanie will be racing professionally on the bike next year. It's going to be interesting to try to balance both, but it really is a demonstration how strong this woman is on 2 wheels, or on a virtual 2 wheels. She really understands the platform. She's been aggressive, understands how to race, how to maximize every point, and just has been a real pleasure to watch these couple weeks.
Yeah, and here we go into the sprint. It's Imogen Simmons pushing out 9 watts per kilo, getting up towards the top of this climb, trying to hold it, and it looks like it's Imogen Simmons, maybe Melanie Moore, I believe, was in there, as well as Emma Pallant, but I think maybe Ruth Assel was able to get there as well, and she countered and is trying to get that gap again, but it was Imogen Simmons with that sprint over Melanie Moore and Emma Pallant. But Ruth Assel, again, she's trying, and she's just kind of hoping they give up. But right now, she's got 2 seconds going into the rollers, which is more than she had the last time. Sarah, I would call this persistence.
Absolutely. You got to give her credit for trying. I think we're going to have to design another jersey for some of these athletes, the Joe Skippers and the Ruth Assels. It's really exciting to have athletes like this in the mix, feeling aggressive and just wanting to try to maximize every opportunity.
For sure. And it is, Zwift racing is different, obviously, than triathlon, and it's obviously different than bike racing out in the real world. So the tactics are important, just as they would be in bike racing, and knowing kind of where you are in a group and how momentum is working. So like Ruth she's putting in big efforts, but I think she's also taking advantage of the flow of the group and how other people are working, right? So it looks like she's burning these huge matches, but I guarantee you she's not sacrificing she's not on the rivet. She's not going to get dropped out of this group. She's positioning herself well so that she can take a couple digs and get a second and see, is it going to stick this time? We'll just keep trying. But I don't think she's really doing too much damage as she gets away from these groups. And she's got another couple times to try that. She saw Joe Skipper get really close, so we'll see if Ruth is able to do that again on this lap.
Well, I think it is important to point out that when you do these multiple very hard efforts, it can take quite a bit out of your legs. So it may not hurt you on stage 1. You may pay for it stage 2 or 3. We have seen athletes successfully moderate their efforts over the 3 stages and really kind of dialed up the last stage and get big dividends out of it. Somebody like an Annabelle Luxford, Jackie Herring, excellent examples of just stay in the mix the first 2 stages and really just go all in stage 3. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ruth responds the next 2 stages.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's doing the same thing. She's right up at the front, and she's certainly trying something. Like, she wants to get away, Sarah. Like, she was on Melanie Moore's wheel going up to that sprint and was able to counter again over the top of that sprint. Melanie Moore got 3 points, Emma Pallant got 2, Angela Nath with 1 point, and Ruth again off the front, and she's got 2.5 seconds going into the downhill rolly section. And I think she's hoping that her persistence pays off and these athletes would be like, hey, you know what, we caught her the last time, we're going to catch her again. Maybe we soft pedal because we just know that we're going to catch her and she can kind of slip off the front. But right now, Sarah, it is at 2.5 seconds, and I think the biggest thing will be once we get to the flats, if she can get 2.5 to 3 seconds after the downhills are done, I think she can stick a move like this, but they're just reeling her back on this downhill every time.
Yeah, these women are not letting her go. You know, they are pushing forward. They're working together. They have the benefit of the draft. You know, so they don't have to, if they are in the slipstream, they're not having to produce as much power as, you know, somebody like Ruth. So it comes to benefit to be in a group. But then again, you know, sometimes those flyers stick, and it's worth going big.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and if it pays off, it pays off, and you know, it's worth that effort. So we'll see in this final sprint if Ruth has spent too much energy or if she's playing well within herself, and certainly we'll be able to tell in the last 2 races. But so we've got last lap, Sarah, 1.5 kilometers to go. Right now, we've got Laura Siddle at the front of the group pushing the pace. Ruth Assel at the front as well. Right now, the group is all together. We just had we have 3 athletes off the back of the group that weren't able to hang on after all those persistent attacks over the KOM, but 1.4K to go. We have 1 KOM sprint left, and then it'll be straight away into the finish, and we'll see if Ruth has been able to soften the legs. What are the chances Ruth's going to do another counter?
Ooh, I'm going to say 50-50. Or at this point, she may just try to go for the group sprint. You know, it's going to be interesting to see somebody like Paula Findlay, who timed it to perfection on week 1, you know, really went big for the last sprint. There may be some other women like that. So, for example, we haven't seen as much of Annabelle Luxford. We know Yep. Laura Siddle, she also likes to go the sprints. They've been a bit quiet today, so it's going to be interesting to see if they do the same today.
Yeah, there we go. So that sprint, it looked like it was Siddle at the front of that, and a second gap with Ruth Assel off the front. We can't necessarily see her, but she is off the front with 600 meters to go. Jackie Herring at the front of the group trying to pull Ruth back. Amelia Rose Watkinson in there as well. So a little flyer off the front of the group as we have 430 meters to go. It's Ruth Assel, Laura Siddle, Kelsey Withrow up there as well. Tight racing with just 300 meters to go. Ruth still has a gap of just about 2 seconds. We're going to see this right-hand corner. They are coming up tight right behind her. I think it is going to be very close as we get to this finish sprint, as it looks like Imogen Simmons is opening up a sprint as well. And here we go across the finish line. Believe that could have been Paula Findlay coming over at the last second, Sarah.
If that was Paula, really, yes, Paula got it. Yeah, she really demonstrated an aptitude for understanding timing for the last sprint on week 1. She did it again, pipped Ruth Assel at the line, who put in a huge effort, 500 meters to go, was aggressive all day, but timing's everything. Ultimately, Paula's going to walk away with 20 points for the finish line sprint.
Yeah, I mean, but Paula, she did the same thing in week 1. Impressive, kind of hid, not somebody we were talking about during the race with the intermediate sprints. Ruth getting a bunch of attention going off the front in a lot of those laps. Melanie Moore getting a ton of points, as well as Emma Pallant. But in the end, it's Paula Findlay with the win on stage 1 of our last week of racing. Ruth Assel almost got it, and you can see those watts per kilogram. It's not always, certainly in a crit, it's not always the athlete with the highest watts per kilo that's going to win the race, because tactics are super, super important. So Ruth spent a lot of energy with those watts and was able to still get second and some points in there. But right now, finish line points, that's Paula Findlay getting most of those with her 20, Ruth Atzel with 19, and Emma Pallant with 18. Melanie Moore in 5th place. So that's going to be the tight racing, is to see how those intermediate sprints points added up between Emma Pallant and Melanie Moore.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind, Ruth Astle got 19 points for the finish line, but she also is accruing points multiple stages. That persistence, that tenacity, going sprint after sprint. She is going to rack up quite a few points for today's stage, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to pay off overall to help her move up the rankings a bit today.
Yeah, I think you're right. And there we go, kind of on the second page. Imogen Simmons ends up in 11th place. Angela Nath showed herself a little bit more in the intermediate sprints this go around, as well as Jackie Herring did that as well. She got 8 points for her time on the finish line, but impressive racing. Again, it's awesome to see people going off the front, Ruth doing that, but Melanie Moore getting the lion's share of points for this race, including the finish line sprint and all the intermediates. So she's got now 6 points on Emma Pallant, which is a lot. That's going to be hard for Emma to be able to overcome. She's going to need to do something special in the second and third race to be able to get ahead of Melanie by enough points to get the series win. So here we go. We're going to head over, Sarah, to the second course, the second race of today, and we are heading into Watopia for the Seaside Sprint. It's going to be flat course, 10 kilometers, not much to it. 15 kilometers. It's for the first time. 15.9 kilometers, almost 10 miles, going in a clockwise direction. And as you see, there's a couple little undulations there, Sarah, but I don't expect there to be much action as far as, the course isn't going to provide the action. As I was saying, there's not going to be any action. I know that Joe Skipper is going to go for a flyer at some point, as well as Martin Van Riel, right?
One can only hope. The men, both the men and women, have really brought their A game these past couple of weeks. They've kept us entertained. I think they've gotten some pretty good workouts out of it. I don't know. I'm just guessing. They've been pushing big watts. One can only assume they've been enjoying it, but also hurting a little bit along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have gotten some feedback from the athletes, and I think there's a lot of pain, no doubt, but they've enjoyed the fact that they've been able to get, it counts as a good solid workout, and they're able to maybe push harder than they would be able to on their own in training. But right now we have the group is all together. They're just half a kilometer in, so it's been a half a K, and Joe Skipper hasn't gone off the front yet. That's something.
That would have been a little soon. Probably makes more sense to kind of sit in, see how things go. To go out, 15K from the finish, that would take quite an effort. While we see that in professional cycling, the stage races, the Tour de France, every once in a while you'll get those long flyers. Not that often with a race this length.
Although, as you say that, they're still under 1K into the race. Martin Van Riel giving it a go. He's a second and a half off the front, Sarah. So speak of the devil, and the devil will appear. And right now that's Martin Van Riel, and he has 3 seconds already. Now, I think you're right. It's a flat course. It's pretty challenging to go for a solo understatement. Pretty challenging to go for a solo breakaway here. But he's got 4 seconds, and I think generally the tactic would be kind of what happened last time is you get a gap like this, you stay there. Not that there's a choice. He's going 400 watts. He's trying very, very hard. But your hope would be that Joe Skipper or Tim Reed or somebody else that likes to be very aggressive would come across, and then you have a much better chance to hold off a group of 20 athletes. But right now, Sarah, he has 5 seconds.
Absolutely. To be able to hold on for that long would be quite a momentous effort. But never say never. I mean, that gap is growing. He has somebody on screen who appears to be coaching him, giving him all the positive reinforcement he needs to just keep growing that gap. Sometimes all you need is somebody in your corner and just cheering you on.
You need somebody in your corner, and you need that headband. That is exactly what I wanted to see when we went to a shot of Martin Van Riel, was him with that headband pushing as hard as he can, over 400 watts. Right now, he's just about 6 watts per kilo with a 6-second gap, 2 kilometers into a 15K flat scratch race. That is a bold move. And it could pay off, right? Like, because if you don't have the help of maybe difficulty in the course where, there's a climb at the end, so the group's just going to go harder. Like, it is now up to the group to start to race to bring him back. It's not just going to come back with no effort. And as I say that, who's trying to go across? Joe Skipper. Ronnie Schildek is in Joe Skipper's draft as they try to go across, both using aero power-ups to try to bridge that gap. But Joe Skipper pushing 8 watts per kilo, trying to bridge across to Martin Van Riel, and the group is breaking up a little bit. So we've got Joe Skipper coming up on Martin Van Riel with Ronnie Schildek and Tim Reed not far behind.
Yeah, you can. I think it's notable to say that we have not our leader. So Anthony Costas is not in that mix, trying to bridge that gap. He's sitting in, he's letting the guys do the work, just looking around, probably mindful of who is going for an attempt and whether or not he needs to chase. But these are athletes that may be able to move up the leaderboard quite well. If this sticks, if they are able to bridge that gap, keep a breakaway from the main group, then it may be beneficial to them to overall today.
For sure. Now it's all coming back together. But I think this is the opportunity when you can see something stick, is if you get a hard counter right now as these groups come back together, as Matt Hansen goes to the front of the group. This is something that there was a lot of effort and energy put into bringing that effort back by Martin Van Riel. So if somebody right about now, like a Mike Phillips, jumps hard and gets a gap, there's a chance that you could get another breakaway to stick. But as they go through this gravel section with a little bit of a downhill, not a great opportunity time-wise to do that counter. It's just too hard to stay away from the group. But you see Terenzo Bozzone at the front of the race. Anthony Costas comfortably, he's at 200 watts, just sitting in the middle of that group, just cruising. As we see aero power up, it does look like somebody is trying to sneak off the front. Is that Peter Hemrick using that aero power up?
Yeah, it looks like it's probably not going to stick, but if you have a power up, sometimes you just feel like you want to use it, might as well. Most of the time we try to use them in the virtual racing for a strategic opportunity, but other times, why not? Just throw it in there, see if it gives you a little boost. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. So Anthony, he definitely looks comfortable. He is just sitting pretty. I think there's a good chance we're going to have quite a few guys just in that position wanting to wait until that finish line sprint. And we have another little breakaway here. So Terenzo Bozzone is off the front. Super strong athlete. We haven't seen a ton of him this series, but this is a man who, obviously does very well in Ironman, but he has really good high power, ability to produce a lot of wattage for a pretty small frame.
No, absolutely. And I will say he is maybe one of the most impressive Ironman athletes when it comes to short, hard efforts on the bike. He's very, very impressive when it comes to shorter efforts. He can put out big watts. So right now he's got a second as he goes up this little rise, but it looks like he is being brought back in a counterattack by Ronnie Schildek, going over 9 watts per kilo as he comes over the top of Terenzo Bozzone. So I think that's what this scratch race is going to end up being, Sarah, is kind of counter after counter after counter. If somebody goes and gets brought back, you're going to see somebody else go again. And right now it's Ronnie Schildek taking that opportunity to try to get away. And again, I do think that these athletes are hoping, like, once you see 2 go together and get a 2-second gap that grows to 5, then you have a chance that Ronnie doesn't really want to go this alone. He wants company. And right now I think it looks like he's going to get company, but it's probably going to be the entire field.
Probably not the company he was hoping for, but you have to give these men credit. Going into the stage, it would have been easy to see them want to just stay in a group and go for the finish line, but they are not. They are attacking, counter-attacking, super dynamic racing going on from these men.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we see Joe Skipper still trying to get away again. No big surprise there, but it does look like as we look around, it does look like he's gotten brought back. At this point, it looks like it's Matt Hansen first across there. One notable athlete that wasn't able to join us this morning was Lionel Sanders, so that's a big opportunity for some of those other athletes to jump into the top 10 and to be able to get himself or themselves a little bit of cash for being in the top 10 and the accolades to be in the top 10 of the ZPro Tri-Series. Sebastian Kienle is going to end up being in the top 10 because of that, and Aaron Royal. So we'll see. There's going to be a battle between those athletes as we go through these last two races. So right on screen, that's Aaron Royal, another one who woke up early in the morning from Oz to join us, and he's been pretty impressive in the previous series that we did, and he's always kind of around in this series. So I think he hasn't necessarily shown his capabilities all the way throughout these first 2 weeks, and he's one I could see having big results in these last two races.
Aaron has done quite well in the third stage traditionally, so he's a solid top 10 guy, just kind of sneaks in there. You'll see him move up the leaderboards. At least that's what I remember from the first couple of weeks, where he was just timing the time trials very well, where you'd see him start off at 10th and just move his way up. So, this week the third stage is going to be a little different. It's not as long of a climb, so it's going to be interesting to see how something like that does. But Aaron Royal, incredible I2 athlete, has been very successful in some of the non-draft racing as well. So the range of these athletes is quite impressive. They are doing, here in Zwift racing, they're doing 15-minute races that are very dynamic, high power, stochastic effort. That's similar to the I2 style racing. But a lot of these athletes can also go half Ironman distance, and sustain high wattage for that period of time. So the range alone of these athletes is really something to be admired.
No, it certainly is, and this isn't necessarily racing that they're used to, so seeing them all kind of learn as they go and be aggressive. Every athlete, as far as I can remember, has done something aggressive in these races, and it's pretty fun to see. So right now we are rolling through Watopia on the Seaside Sprint. It's 8 kilometers in now, 7.7 kilometers to go. The group is together, still on the first lap, coming up here on lap number 2. But again, this race will be just a standard scratch race, so no points up for grabs as they go through this lap. But for the finish line, again, it's 20 points for the winner, and then descending order points given as we go through, and then those points will be awarded to see they'll be added to point totals from the first race and the last race to see who ends up moving up or down the list for the overall rankings in the series. But right now it's all together, and Sarah, nothing's happened in a little bit. They're all kind of watching each other, but I think we're going to see a move here pretty shortly.
Well, I think that would be a fair bet, considering how dynamic the racing has been thus far. I don't know if you remember back to 2 weeks ago, but the very first stage of the men, do you remember Matt saying, yeah, the guys, they were a little conservative. It was a little boring. We'd like to see more breakaways. Well, they're definitely getting their fill of breakaways today. They are keeping us on the edge of the seat. That first stage was pretty mild, and I think they may have just been feeling each other out. And they just, each week, they bring better and better racing to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see that with the crit today separating into 2 groups. That was very different than what we saw the first couple weeks. So impressive racing by the men, and no doubt they heard me say that they were a little bit boring, and they've stepped up their game. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. World-class athletes doing their best. And right now, it looks like the field, that there's some pressure being put at the front with Terenzo Bozzone doing a bit of work. Tim Reed has been really aggressive, more so than he was in our first series a few months ago. Tim Reed having a great performances in the series so far. He's at the front of the group, pushing hard. So I think everybody's watching. They're expecting that effort and that attack, and they're bringing him back pretty quick. It was Ronnie Shilnick that just got a little bit of a gap a few moments ago and was brought back in. David McNamee on screen in his flat. He got a little bit of notoriety this year as he was able to talk us through his experience in quarantine this year, and I will say it was pretty entertaining.
David McNamee is one of the funniest guys in triathlon. He has a dry Scottish sense of humor. I don't know how that translates to Catalan. He now lives in Girona, and maybe his sense of humor also works there. Who knows? But in English, he is absolutely hysterical. One of the best Ironman athletes, two-time world championship medalist, very strong,
yep.
And a porridge lover. What more could you want?
loves his porridge. I wouldn't expect anything else. No, David McNamee, full on character, and he in his Twitter rambles, he would often talk about conversations he was having with his avatar, and he said, I think his recent one was that he was upset with his avatar, or his avatar was upset with him when he put in his weight for the series this time, because he's been on the treats a little bit more before this series. But Dave McNamee still being aggressive and racing well, as we see Anthony Costas, Mike Phillips, and Matt Hansen on the front of this group, kind of just monitoring, making sure they don't let anybody sneak off the front.
Yeah, I think it is important to put into context where these athletes are in their training cycles. This year the live racing has been disrupted for most people, but we're professionals. You keep on training, you keep on grinding. Somebody like Dave McNamee, I believe he's coming off of a break, so yeah, most of us have a few more treats. We have a few more kilos on our avatar then. Other athletes are in peak fitness right now, trying to show up to one of the few races that are on the calendar, Challenge Daytona in a couple weeks' time. So you have some athletes kind of building back up fitness, other ones at peak fitness, and they're all meeting together on this virtual platform, just trying to hurt themselves and give us some great racing.
Yeah, and here we go. Joe Skipper takes a little bit of a rise, takes the opportunity to use the aero power-up and try to get over the top of that rise as we go through the lava fields here. And now he has 2 seconds over the group. Sebastian Kienle is at the front of the group trying to bring Joe Skipper back, or maybe go across. Sebastian at 6.5 watts per kilo. So, Sarah, they are absolutely hammering right now. Joe Skipper, 8 watts per kilo at the moment over Matt Hansen, who is now 3 seconds back. He's with that group. Everyone that's in that front five of that group is pushing over 6 watts per kilo right now. So here we go. Surprise, surprise. It's Joe Skipper trying to go for the big prize off the front of the group with 3.5 kilometers to go. Joe Skipper with that power up now has 3.5 seconds over the chase group, with Jackson Laundry putting in the big effort. And man, he is chewing on that stem, Sarah.
No, it looks like he's turning himself inside out, and it's a bit of pleasure, it's a bit of pain. That is the grimace of a man who is just putting 100% into the ride today.
Yeah, so when he originally went for that gap, looking at the watts, like I said, Sebastian Kienle was on the front of the group. Everybody chasing was at about 6 watts per kilo. Now, Joe Skipper has settled as well. He's at a little over 5.5 watts per kilo at 5.5 seconds. But what's notable is right now the chasers are in that 4 watts per kilo zone. They're all kind of looking at each other. Matt Hansen is now putting in an effort to try to bring him back and to go across. But 5.5 seconds, Joe Skipper maintaining a steady gap with 2.7 kilometers to go. Now, if we were betting, we would say the group is going to be able to bring him back, but they have to start putting in a little bit of an effort. And I just hope it's not heartbreak like it was before, Sarah. I can't take the disappointment again. Come on, Joe.
Well, heartbreak from earlier today, but remember last week on stage 2 when he was successful with his breakaway, by and large, he went off and definitely broke up the field, made it exciting, was able to stay away for a long time. Hopefully this is a repeat of that. I think with
Here we go.
2.2 kilometers to go, it's going to be tough to hold them off with only 4.5 seconds gap, but you never know. It's worth pushing.
It certainly is, and no doubt he's gonna go for it. Always swinging for the fences is Joe Skipper. Matt Hansen at the front of the group, pushing 5.3 watts per kilo to Joe Skipper's 6 watts per kilo. It's 4.5 seconds, and Joe is all in. Look at him just chewing. Oh, he is absolutely gasping for air. 440 watts as he goes over this little rise, gets maybe a little bit of respite on this downhill. But right now it's 5.2 seconds, still a gap as he goes into this downhill. It's worth noting that the downhill in general is going to favor the group as they are able to hold a little bit more speed kind of in that mass as they blob up. But right now they're not bringing him back overly quickly. He's pushing that effort. I mean, he's on a downhill and he's still over 400 watts. So he is pushing 1.5 K to go, Sarah, and Joe Skipper has 6 seconds on the group. Is he going to be able to hold it?
I certainly hope so. Now, I believe he's in the top 10 for the overall rankings right now, right? He's maybe 6th or so. That will fact check for us. But this could be decisive stage if he is able to stay away, just in terms of his ability to move up the leaderboard. Because remember, those men are very close together in points. It can be... Oh, yeah. Matt has confirmation for us.
Confirmation that he's in 15th place. So he's got nothing to lose, so to speak.
Nothing to lose.
And, but he has the ability to move up the field. So right now, we got Joe Skipper. He's 850 meters to go. He's been on a solo breakaway for a couple K now. The group is all together, 4 seconds back. Ben Canute putting in a huge effort at 8 watts per kilo to try to drive this group back. Now, if you're the one that's doing all the effort to pull back, it's going to be challenging to have a great sprint. So you need to make sure you kind of dose that energy. But right now, 630 meters to go. It's down to 3 seconds. Joe Skipper absolutely killing himself. Look at that, out of the saddle, 600 watts. His heart rate 170. He is absolutely tearing himself apart. 430 meters to go, 2.8 seconds. The group is coming and Ben Canute is doing the work, almost 9 watts per kilo. They are all flashing red now. Mike Phillips putting in a big effort. They are coming across, 200 meters to go, and Joe Skipper is swallowed up, and it looks like it's Mike Phillips putting in the big effort to bring him back, and I believe it's Mike Phillips that gets it again, and a dejected Joe Skipper. Oh man, he almost had it again, a couple hundred meters, but it does look like it was Mike Phillips got him at the end. And man, hats off. If I was wearing a hat, I would take it off and hand it to Joe Skipper, because impressive work.
Absolutely, gotta love that tenacity. It just goes to show the athletes who put themselves in the mix. He had an oversized appearance in my brain for being in the leaderboard just because he's been there. He's been so tenacious, and that's what makes a fan out of us. Seeing that sort of resilience and that drive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there it is, Mike Phillips able to get the win over James Kunema. So great points grab for those. And to me, what stands out is kind of what I was saying as we were going through there, is someone that we don't see on the screen there is Ben Canute. And he spent a lot of energy early to bring Joe Skipper back, and ended up backfiring, because the person he is racing against for that top 3 position is Mike Phillips. Mike got 20 points. Ben Canute only with 8. So you need to make sure you're aggressive and you want to get that win, but you need to make sure you dose that energy properly. So I'm curious to see what the total points are going to be after that, but I think it's going to be tight for that. And also James Kunema got a fair bit of points over Anthony Costas as well with his 2nd place. So amazing racing, and again, heartbreak for Joe Skipper, but you know what? He'd do it again if he could. Amazing work for him. But the women are ready and rolling, so let's go check out the women's race, which is already in process. We see right now leader of the series so far, and leader on today's points is Melanie Moore on screen.
Yeah, that was quite something from the men, and I can only assume that the women are going to be equally exciting today. Now, they are already quite a bit into the race. I'm guessing we haven't had any attempts at breakaways. The men were definitely on fire from the gun. I would have bet before today that both of the men and the women would have been a bit more conservative, just wait until the second half for an attempt at a breakaway. But no, the men went for it from the start. It was exciting. I can't wait to see the replay of that stage. The women are kind of following the game plan that you would traditionally expect, where they're looking at each other, they're being a bit more conservative, and if there's an attempt at a breakaway, they'll probably reel it in pretty quickly. But who knows? I don't know if we're going to be seeing quite the level of attacks, counterattacks that we saw from the men.
No, I think you're right. It's definitely a different tactic, and maybe it's just, again, maybe we missed a bunch and they're just settling in. But right now the group is together, and there's certainly opportunity for someone to take advantage in a race like this. As we saw, Joe Skipper showed that there's an opportunity there, but you have to have the legs and the determination to have it pay off. And it just, I mean, if Joe Skipper had a second more, he would have had 2 races won today. I mean, that's how close it's been for Joe, and absolutely given it all. So, but on screen, obviously the focus right now is the women's race, and right now it's Laura Siddle at the front of the group pushing the pace. Jackie Herring popped up there for a second. I was super impressed with her race to finish the racing last week, Sarah, with her second place on that Mass Start TT.
No, absolutely. She's an athlete who understands her strengths and has been playing to those strengths, really showing herself on the third stage of this series that she likes those climbs, she likes those TT efforts, and it's really been quite masterful to watch.
Yeah,
right now we have
on
Holly
screen.
Lawrence on screen. We have Holly Lawrence on screen. This is an incredibly strong athlete. Again, a real testament to the strength of this field, that somebody who is this good we haven't been talking about as often. One of the strongest cyclists in triathlon, but you have a bunch of women really wanting to show up at week after week, stage after stage, go for it. I would love to see Holly in the mix, really show her stuff. She is incredibly strong, very powerful. It would be exciting day for it. Just saying, if she wants to go for a breakaway, why not? Why not? We cheer on breakaways. We love them.
Yeah, just saying, Holly. Now's a good opportunity. Yeah, I think you make a great point. Like, having an athlete of her caliber, and from my point of view, there's so many world-class athletes on here that are taking a little bit of a risk, right? Like, it's a bike race, they're triathletes, so I wouldn't say, like we point out Melanie Moore, she's great at Zwift racing. She's been around, as you said, moving on to also race bikes, but most of these athletes work daily on being good swimmers, bikers, and runners, and putting all their effort into that. So putting themselves out there to do Zwift-specific racing, we're stoked that they do that, and I think they're all having fun, finding out what their strengths and weaknesses are in the racing and trying to improve upon that. But on screen right now is Ruth Assel, and she's one that certainly knows how to race on Zwift very, very well, been very aggressive in the series to date as she moves through to the front of the group. And they're certainly putting in big efforts right now, kind of as they move through, as they go through a little descent on course as Lisa Norden pulls through the front of the race.
Yeah, no, they're not having a social ride today. It's definitely not a coffee shop spin. They're keeping the pressure on the pedals. They want to have a good, honest race. And, again, they're going to get a massive training benefit from efforts like this. I think a lot of the time we have this misconception about triathlon that it's a lot of slow grinding miles, but these sorts of efforts will help build your VO2 max, help build your fitness, and it will translate to even the Ironman distance, the long course distances. So, whether you're an amateur athlete, whether you're a professional triathlete, having these super high intensity efforts will make you a better cyclist. And I think most of these women would prefer that I not talk about that. They don't want their competition on this platform necessarily.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and it's not something that is often worked on, or especially at this time of year. And I think this current climate that we're in, it allows those athletes to have a little bit more fun with their training, try something different, something that maybe they're not used to, and it certainly isn't something that a lot of the long course athletes necessarily like. They're not just going out for 112 miles and riding in their training. They're doing short efforts, but this type of short effort is very different than what most of these athletes will do week on, week out. Right now, one of those long course athletes that has had great success in long course racing, but also is really honestly impressed me in the series so far, Sarah, is Laura Siddle on screen. She's been aggressive, and she's shown that she learned from the first series. She had good performances in the first series, but I wouldn't say that she necessarily shined as she is in this round.
Yes, I'd also like to point out her sign is quite spectacular. We really appreciate that, Laura. So she's one of,
I can't read
not to play favorites, but she's definitely a real gem for the sport. A champion for other women. Just loves it. You can really sense that she just wants to promote triathlon because it's something that is important to her, and she's benefited so much from it over the years. Now, you still can't see it?
I can't see it.
It's a little shout out to us, Matt. It's all
cool.
about us right
Awesome.
now. No, but she's doing a really good job. Just 172 heart rate. This is a hard effort. If anybody out there is an athlete and they track their heart rate, they know that is a real testament to exactly how hard she's working right now. Now she's been aggressive in the sprints. She's been putting herself in contention. It's really been fun. It's been a journey following these athletes over the last 3 weeks. I don't know if you feel similarly, Matt. I feel emotionally invested in their, the racing.
No, absolutely. And it has been cool because we've seen people responding to the racing, right? And like we've gotten messages and all that, and people have given us their feedback and kind of what they're hoping to do next time. But we've also seen it kind of on screen as to how they've performed and reacted to different racing and learning tactics and being more aggressive, as we see riders on screen getting some ride-ons as they go through this section of the course. And we've got, we're 11.5 kilometers in, just 4K to go now, Sarah, and we see the group is entirely together. Actually, we got Lauren Brandon and Holly Lawrence just hanging off the back of the group, so they're going to try to work together to get back on that group. And I will say, hats off to Lauren Brandon. She's riding, I think, in outside of Park City, so I think she's at like 6,000 feet. But no doubt she's got a smile on her face. But definitely a challenge keeping up with athletes at sea level when you're up that high.
Yeah, obviously every individual responds differently to altitude, but you can see, I've heard it's about 10 to 15% watt differential between altitude and sea level. I don't know if you can confirm. I may have just made that up. Oh, no. Okay. All right. I made that. No, 10 to 15 watts, not percentage.
There you go. It depends what your watts are. And that could be a percentage. Well, it depends. That's true. There's a different argument. If you live at 7,000 feet, I'm gonna get messages from those people saying, yes, it's 15%. But this is a debate for another time. Maybe we'll talk about this on the podcast sometime coming up, Sarah. We can go a little bit deeper on altitude and its effects. But right now, let's focus on the race. 3K to go, and the group is all together. Everybody's back on. So we've got the whole group. We got Annabelle Luxford in there. We have Amelia Rose Watkinson is in there. Laura Phillip in there as well. I'm excited to see her maybe have a good sprint here. But who do you think? We got 3K to go. Everybody's together. As far as group sprints have been, to me, who I've been the most impressed with is probably Annabelle Luxford and Paula Finlay. What about you?
Paula has done such a great job with that last minute sprint. Although you're right, stage 2 last week, Annabelle Luxford timed it to perfection. That was a really exciting sprint. Ooh, you're putting me on the spot here. I
Always,
think
always.
we're gonna just say somebody different here, and I'm gonna say Angela Nath.
Oh, there you go. And she's been
What a
one. I think
curveball.
that's a great pick. Yeah, she's been one that has been focused on the Zwift racing. She's got I Race Like a Girl team that she's put together, and she's definitely having a lot of fun with racing on the platform. And it's cool. We had some pre-rides last time, and she'd be on there asking for input on when to unload the sprint and that sort of stuff. So she's definitely worked on it. She knew that she had to, and she's put that effort in. Right now, we've got Meredith Kessler on screen as they go over this little rise, and around the left side it looks like Amelia Rose Watkinson putting in an effort on the front. And right now, Sarah, with 2K to go, it's those athletes need to find themselves in a good position. You don't want to be necessarily at the front. When the sprint comes, you don't necessarily want to be at the back. So there's a lot of movement, a little kind of micro efforts being put in so these athletes can reach that last kilometer in a position that they find advantageous.
Yeah, it can get strung out pretty quickly. The last thing you want to do is be caught unawares. All of a sudden somebody has moved to the front and really put in a big effort. If you're not paying attention and there's a gap, it can be hard to close, in those final stages of the race. So you just want to be watching. You want to keep the pressure on. But again, you want to be sitting in the draft. You want to be conserving your energy. So it's really trying to find a balance between being attentive, being aggressive, but conserving your energy.
For sure. And we're saying it's all a choice, but right now most of these women are pushing over 5 watts per kilo, so it's not necessarily just I want to go there, I want to go there. It takes a lot of work to move around these groups as they go down these rollers into the last kilometer. But on the front of the group right now is Melanie Moore with a K to go. I'd imagine she's probably going to start soft pedaling a little bit. You don't really want to be at the front of the group this early if you're trying to take the win in the sprint. And we have a power up at the front. That's Angela Nath using that power up at the front of the group, putting in a fair bit of effort. 850 meters to go. The group is coming back around Angela Nath. She didn't get anywhere with that, but it's Ruth at the front as they go over this little rise. Here's an opportunity for somebody to put in a dig and maybe get off the front. And it's Melanie Moore, over 6 watts per kilo, finding herself at the front of this group, setting a steady tempo going into this finish. And it's worth noting someone like we said earlier in the men's race, Ben Canute put a big effort in to keep the pace high going into the finish, and that backfired with him finishing in 12th place. Around the outside comes Imogen Simmons putting in an effort as she uses the aero power up going down this descent, but the group is on her. No break for her. Everybody is throwing up their power ups. Now it's Laura Phillip with a few hundred meters to go at the front of the group, trying to get away, but everybody is still there. Sarah, Jocelyn McCauley at the front, pushing 8 watts per kilo, trying to get that sprint. And it looks like Paula Finlay at the front of this group over Amelia Rose Watkinson, I think, comes around Paula Finlay at the very last moment. But we'll have to see. Jocelyn McCauley and Annabelle Luxford were in there as well. And it was just by the tiniest of margins, Sarah, Amelia Rose Watkinson over Paula Finlay and Jocelyn McCauley.
Amelia Rose Watkinson, a little quiet on stage one. We saw her be pretty aggressive the first 2 weeks, so she timed it well. She did what Paula has done so well, which is just wait for that last bit to really throw down high watts and get that sprint. Just pipped her at the line. Really exciting to see Jocelyn McCauley also in the mix. We haven't seen her in the mix with a lot of sprints, but really just goes to show that these athletes, they have range, the ability to produce high power and do those long grinding efforts too.
Yeah, absolutely. But amazing effort there. Notably, Laura Siddle in 6th place, Melanie Moore in 7th, Emma Pallant, in 5th place, so getting a couple points back on Melanie Moore. But let's head back. We'll tabulate those points so we know where their standings are going into the final TT. But let's head down to the men's race, which is going to be down in New York in Rising Empire. We're going to be cruising around, finishing with the KOM. And again, Sarah, I keep saying it, and I'm sure people are bored listening to me say this, but the mass start, non-drafting TT, I love it. And you can only do it on Zwift. And as soon as I got on this platform, I'm like, this is what we need to do. I love it. And right now it's Ben Canute at the front of the race pushing it.
No, absolutely. You would get a draft in real life. You have athletes right up on each other. They can they could have practically touch the athlete. If these avatars were real, that would be illegal. You can't do that. That's not time trial legal. So to be able to have these avatars that close together and to be able to have that, mental chess game of trying to moderate your game, your effort, while also being mindful of what everybody else is doing and just really keying off each other.
Okay, and here we go, Sarah, on screen. The race totals going in to the last round. It's Anthony Costas with a bunch of points at 49, Jackson Laundry with 42 points, James Kunema with 37, Ben Canute with 35. So pretty tight for today. I will say it looks like Costas is going to have enough points to stay away from Kunema unless he has a horrific last time trial. So we'll see that. But the big kind of points that I'm looking at are between Ben Canute and Mike Phillips. So it's just 5 points separating those two. So that race is a lot tighter. Looking back at Ben Canute is just 2 points behind Mike Phillips going into today's stage. That's going to be really tight. And I think that's maybe why Ben Canute is being so aggressive so early, Sarah.
Yeah, I bet he's kicking himself a little bit for going possibly a bit too soon on the sprint last stage. That could have cost him quite a few points, but he is putting himself in position to move up in the overall standings. He is going to turn himself inside out today. Very strong, very aggressive athlete. Loves to hurt, and I think he is going to be absolutely done by the time of the stage. He's going to put everything into every single pedal stroke. Another athlete who probably wish they could turn back time is Mike Phillips. He's in a good position, but stage one, if he had stayed in that group, who knows what kind of position he would be for the overall standings today. That it just goes to show you have one stage where something might your timing might be off, you might miss the group, and that could be the difference between, say, third or fourth in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now he's certainly hindsight 2020 on that one. I'm sure he wished he did things a little bit differently, but he's in a good position. He just needs to make sure he stays within a couple positions of Ben Canute in this stage to be able to get enough points to stay in third place. As we have James Kunema at the front of the field, he's trying his best to distance himself from Anthony Costas, but Anthony Costas is right there with the bib number 1. Great shot as he's in third position. And again, we'll remind you, there is no drafting in this. So even though it looks like these athletes are all kind of sitting on wheels, they are all in an individual effort. We have pressed the big no drafting button here on Zwift. And that is, in my head, the tech guys have this big button that's just no drafting and they push it. But anyways, you know what I'm saying. No drafting at all. And right now it's still pretty darn tight. James Kunema, Ben Canute, Anthony Costas all within a half a second. The rest of the group is pretty tight as well until you get to about 9th place. And Joe Skipper is currently 12 seconds back with Aaron Royal, Tim Van Berkel, and Ronnie Schildneck a little bit further back. But right now the race is up front with Anthony Costas.
Yeah, I think Anthony Costas and James Kunema really have demonstrated on stage 3 the past couple weeks how good they are at these time trials. Yeah, I can only imagine today is going to be something similar. Now, there is one difference. The past 2 weeks, the final stage has had a longer climb. Today, I believe the climb is only 1.4 kilometers, which is significantly shorter than what we've seen. So we do have some athletes who are very, very strong climbers who may not be able to shine quite as much as they have in the past 2 stages. So it's going to be interesting to see if that changes things fundamentally, or great time trialing is great time trialing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And actually, I was just going to bring up, I think our production crew knows my thoughts at this point, but I was going to say Mike Phillips, a course like this, as you were saying, Sarah, is not as sustained a climb. But I think a climb of that length and steepness suits an athlete like Mike Phillips to a certain extent. Again, this is a time trial, but it can be a tactical time trial. All Mike right now is doing is trying to make sure he stays with or ahead of Ben Canute. And right now, he's just 1 second back. So you can kind of dose your energy out. And if you're an athlete that has the ability to put out really high watts for a short period of time, Mike Phillips might be able to kind of ride that time trial. And then when that climb hits, be really explosive and aggressive. So I think with this climb, it might not necessarily suit someone like Anthony Casas, who we've seen just really dominate those hill climbs and always be right there. I think it might suit someone that's more of a roller or a punchy rider like Mike Phillips.
Yeah, I would like to point out he is riding 70 RPMs. Now, so this is a very controlled effort. You know, this is not him going max effort trying to find watts. We don't have heart rate on him. I'm guessing it's fairly low. That tells me that he has more in the tank. You know, once he hits the climb, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts ramping up his cadence a little bit. He gets that heart rate spike, just goes for broke. I mean, that's what those metrics tell me.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. Right now on screen, someone who is pretty good at the solo efforts he's shown in the time trials, but also in the fact that he's always going for breakaways is, I know, one of your favorites, Martin Van Riel, currently in 6th place, but just a little bit, just a half a second behind Jackson Laundry and a further 7 seconds to Mike Phillips. So he's right there. And again, we're actually coming up right now, Sarah, on the climb. So they just past the mark. So right now is when we're going to be able to see if if we're right, and we're going to have some athletes that really punch it up this last 1.2 kilometers. But Martin Van Riel is moving through the field. Now he's 10 seconds back and a little bit of shuffle at the front. We've got James Kunema 1.3 seconds in front of Anthony Costas, really getting after it. And he's up out of the saddle, putting in a big effort, trying to stay away from Anthony Costas. Ben Canute still up there, as well as Mike Phillips is starting to bring those athletes back. And he's now just 4.5 seconds behind the front of the group and just 0.2 seconds behind Ben Canute. But right now on screen, it's James Kunema at the front of this race with a 2-second gap on Anthony Costas.
James has done such a spectacular job this series. You know, I think there was some disappointment in the spring series. So to see him be able to produce consistently excellent results, you know, he and Anthony have done such a spectacular job with these stages. You know, they've kept it exciting. I'm sure they have gotten incredible training stimulus, but there has been no margin for error. They have not had any bad stages, or they wouldn't be in this position trying to duke it out for overall series.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is great to see James Kunema putting in that effort right now, 3.5 seconds up. He wants to get a stage win. He knows that it's going to be a pretty big ask for him to finish over Anthony Costas in the series. But right now, Anthony Costas is fighting back. He's just brought back a half a second, got out of the saddle, saw his watts go orange there, and he was pushing over 7 watts per kilo, 8 watts per kilo, but 3.5 seconds now behind James Kunema with 600 meters to go as they go up this steep pitch in the Rising Empire course. Ben Canute is now 12 seconds back, but him and Mike Phillips have locked horns, and they're riding together, so to speak. Martin Van Riel has bridged up to those two, so they're all riding within a half a second of each other. But right now, great shot of Anthony Costas chasing the man on screen, James Kunema. It's now 2.8 seconds, Sarah, 300 meters to go. James trying to get the glory, trying possibly to move up in the standings, but it looks like second place is going to be all that is possible. But he wants to finish. He wants to drop the mic with a final stage win, and James Kunema 150 meters away from getting reaching that goal over Anthony Costas at 3 seconds. But I don't think Anthony Costas is going to be too worried about it. He knows he has the points. As we see James Kunema coming across the finish line, he is going to win the last Mass Start TT of the series. 3 seconds behind is Anthony Costas right now crossing the finish line. Martin Van Riel last second moves across, and right now he's in front of Mike Phillips and Ben Canute, but Mike Phillips is trying to get those points. He wants to make sure he stays in front of Ben Canute, but it was super tight, all within a half a second. But it was Martin Van Riel in third, Mike Phillips in fourth, Ben Canute in fifth, and Jackson Laundry is going to put in a good effort to maintain his spot, it looks like, in the overall. But right now I'm trying to do math in my head. I have no idea what's going on, but pretty sure Costas and James Kunema have held their positions in first and second, Sarah.
I think that's probably right. I do have to give a shout out, Jackson Laundry. Really good day today for him. You know, he was in the front, very consistent. You know, overall, these men have been so impressive to watch over the last 3 weeks. You know, they have shown up every single stage, keeping it exciting for the fans. Some breakaways, some minor heartaches. Joe Skipper, thank you for keep on trying. Next series, it's going to work. But really, just keep in mind that they're doing swimming and run training on top of this. You know, this is only one part of their training. They're going in fatigued, and they are able to turn themselves inside out week after week. So you really have to give them a lot of credit for everything that they've been doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, talking to Anthony Costas last week, you know, he even said, he's like, these other athletes, a lot of the ones that he's racing against are training for the race you spoke of earlier with the Challenge Daytona. And he's like, this is my race. He's like, I'm focusing on this right now. So he has the advantage to maybe not be doing some hard runs, you know, leading up to these events. And, you know, more power to him for focusing on it and doing his best. And it looks like he's been able to get that win. But Ronnie Schildknecht on screen, coming across the finish line in 11th place, definitely one of my favorites, just one of the nicest guys in the sport, and a very dynamic cyclist as well, and one whose wheel is pretty hard to hold on to. But there we go. Results for race number 3. James Kunema at 5.6 watts per kilo. He spent his watts wisely, finishing in front of Anthony Costas, even though Anthony pushed a little bit more watts on the end of the day. Martin Van Riel ends up in third, Mike Phillips, Ben Canute. So we're going to tabulate those points and see kind of where everything ended up. Tim Don with a good performance, finishing 7th place in that TT. That could help with his overall standings.
Yeah, I think these men have a lot to be proud about today, and just over the last 3 weeks, you know, it's been unbelievable racing. And you know, we're only seeing the top 10 on this board, but the men who aren't showing up, they also have turned themselves absolutely inside out. And we're grateful for all of them for, you know, being here to make the racing exciting, and to all the spectators cheering them on around the world.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I guarantee you James Kunema is pretty happy about that performance, and rightly so. He was smart with how he dosed out his energy in that final time trial. And here we go on screen, showing how he did it. He was there the whole time. He was up in that top 3, top 5 position for most of that time trial, but he certainly was saving a little something for that last kicker. And he is an athlete. Like, if you look at Anthony Costas and James Kunema next to each other, you can tell which one is a pure climber and which one is a very, very powerful climber and a cyclist. James is very built and pushes out a lot of watts. So he saved the energy to really get up and out of the saddle and push that effort, that last 1.4 kilometers. So good job on him. And Martin Van Riel, just last second, he was the mover on that climb. I think he went into that climb in 5th or 6th place and ended up coming over Mike Phillips and Ben Canute just by a half a second to get third. So there you go. I know your favorite Martin Van Riel, Sarah.
I don't play favorites. I like all of these athletes.
And here we go. It's race totals for today. Anthony Costas just running away with it with 68 points over James Kunema's 57, and Jackson Laundry in 3rd place. Yeah, great call, Sarah. He did have a great race today with 57 points, tied with James Kunema in 2nd for points. But James will get it with his 1st place finish in that last stage. So really, really impressive racing by all the athletes. But Anthony Costas, putting a period or explanation point or explanation. Whoa, words are hard. Anyways, you know what I'm saying. Anthony Costas doing really good. Got a lot of points. What do you think, Sarah?
Oh, wow. So we have our overall men's series, Anthony Costas. He took it. He was the favorite going in. James Cunnama held on to second, and third, Jackson Laundry. I did not see that coming. Not gonna lie. He brought it on the third week, and it absolutely paid off. He snuck into tied with Mike Phillips. So we have a tie for third. Mike Phillips and Jackson Laundry with 49 points. Ben Canute, 1 point behind, 48 points. Tim Donman, Matt Hansen, Aaron Royal, Martin Van Riel, Lionel Sanders, rounding out our top 10 for the series.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I am shocked, and I'm pretty forthright in saying that I'm bad at math, so that's what I'm gonna use this excuse as. But Jackson Laundry, we're all talking about Mike Phillips and Ben Canute, and I think that's who those two athletes were looking at too. That was the tightest race, but Jackson Laundry able to jump both of them with huge performance today, getting 18 points on the day over 15 and 14. So amazing work from Jackson, being able to finish on the podium in the series. Awesome stuff.
This was a good day for him to really knock it out of the park, and he did that today. To see him tied with Mike for third, that was quite a performance.
Yeah, great stuff. But okay, any big surprises besides that one for you? I mean, I'm stoked to see James finish in second place. I know he worked so hard, as you said, disappointment in the last series. But any other big surprises for you besides it just being great racing?
Just great racing. I think it really is. We do have to emphasize the fact that consistency pays off. If you can't really have an off day and expect to be in contention for the top 5. Martin had a rough day the first week of racing. What kind of position would he be in if he had done better? Right now these athletes are asking themselves, how could I have done better in X, Y, or Z stage? And that's what makes it really exciting to know that they're going to have another opportunity a couple months from now. We're going to see what they're made of. Some of them are going to get a little bit more experience, because it really, really does help on this platform to understand how to maximize the courses. Somebody like Anthony Costas is such a master in that. He understands courses, he understands his own physiology, and it pays off, as we saw today.
Yeah, I think you're right. And someone like Anthony really puts the effort into, he has a game plan going into each race and each week for sure. But amazing racing from the men. Congratulations to everybody for participating. Super impressive. And again, with the 3-race format each week, it was, we're kind of upside down on what was going to happen each time. But right now, let's go to the women's race. As we see right now, the race totals coming into the final is Melanie Moore with 45 points over Emma Pallant with 41 and Paula Finley with 39. So we'll see. Right now, it's going to take a lot for Emma to be able to jump Melanie, but anything can happen on the last stage, Sarah.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that Emma, I believe it was week 1, she had a bit of a technical snafu, and it meant that she started the time trial a minute behind the fields. Right now you're realizing that those points, they make a difference. But such a mentally tough athlete. That day she was able to just keep grinding, moved her way up the board, and minimize the damage to the best extent possible. But you realize that was a hard hit. In terms of the overall standings, to be starting a time trial a minute behind your competitors, it's tough to come back from that, but she is sitting in a great position going into this last stage.
Yeah, for sure. And right now we're just 0.5 kilometers in, and we can see the athletes that are being aggressive. Ruth is at the front of the race right now on the same time as Melanie Moore, with Angela Nath in third place, pushing hard as well. So not too much is broken up at this point early on, but we're going to see some action, no doubt. And I'm curious if the women's race develops a little bit different than the men's or not. You definitely saw some men trying to stay steady until they hit that kicker and then really unloaded it. So I'll be curious to see if the women are a little bit more steady in their effort or if they play a similar tactic.
Well, we're only going to find out. So it's again, it's a 1.4 kilometer climb at the end of the stage. Not as long as we've seen in previous weeks. So athletes who did very well in the stage, like Jackie Herring last week, they love those long climbs. The woman we see on screen right now, Melanie Moore, she loves the long climbs, but she has tremendous range. She's good on the flats, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that actually shakes things up or we see similar dynamics to what we've seen in week 1, week 2 for our third stage.
Yeah, we are going to find out for sure, but Melanie Moore on screen looks like she's pretty darn comfortable as you see her getting in and out of the saddle. And it's something you noticed on one of the athletes, Mike Phillips, earlier. She has an almost identical RPM to Mike Phillips, definitely just kind of cruising, being comfortable, but you can see her just constantly getting in and out of the saddle.
Yeah, no, she understands how to maximize wattage. That's one of the interesting things. If you were doing a time trial on the roads, you would not be out of the saddle for very long, if at all. Maybe over some short punchy climbs, because you really want to maximize aerodynamics. Here, the name of the game is power. Your avatar is super aero, no matter what you're doing in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, because it is, again, with this Mass Start TT on Zwift, it's very different. It's not something we see. You never see someone out of the saddle in the flats on a time trial. It just doesn't happen. So right now, Ruth Assel is putting a big effort in early, certainly trying to get as much distance on her competitors as possible, trying to get more points in the last stage. So she is now 2 seconds ahead of Melanie Moore, just 2.5K in. That's something, Sarah. I think if that continues to grow, we might see Ruth with enough of a gap to be able to stay in front of Melody after that final climb.
Yeah, no, Ruth is feeling it today. She week 1 was pretty flat for Ironman Florida. Week 2 brought it up. She is 100% committed to each stage today, and it's really exciting to see. So right now we have Imogen Simmons on camera, incredibly strong young athlete. Absolutely exciting to see her on this platform. I don't believe she has a lot of experience with it, but to see her improve week after week and really start to understand the game and try to maximize. For some athletes, it takes a little bit of time. Hopefully she'll come back for our next round of Zwift Tri Racing, and we'll be able to see her build on her performances here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and she's one that I've thought of in this series who certainly has learned as she went, and she hasn't been shy at when she feels it to be aggressive, and she's tried to go for wins and maybe a little bit early in some of those sprints, but she's learned and reacted when it comes down to the next race and how she attempts to get those wins. Right now on screen, Angela Nath up out of the saddle, matching her avatar quite perfectly. They're very in sync as they go up this climb, but Angela at 300 watts, 60 RPMs, up out of the saddle, pushing the pace, riding in third place, 7 seconds behind our leader on the road, Ruth Astle.
Other than the fact that her avatar does have short blonde hair, that is a little different. It is amusing to see how people decide to customize. She is wearing her I Race Like a Girl kit. Her team has a very strong presence on Zwift, but no blonde hair in real life.
That is true. Good
Factually correct.
That is factually correct. So right now, making a move, moving through the field a little bit, is Jackie Herring. She was one that we saw move throughout the time trial last week. as well. Again, it's a time trial, so you want to dose your energy properly, or how you know you can best dole it out on that course. So Jackie Herring up on the wheel of Angela Nath now. They're both 9 seconds behind our leader on the road, Ruth Assel. But Jackie Herring, very, very experienced in Zwift racing, and she's been able to show it in some sprints, those intermediate sprints in the crit races, and in the scratch race as well. But certainly she's been, kind of giving it her best effort in the time trials at the end of each week.
Yeah, she really has been shining on the last stage each week. I think she comes from a very strong run background, and normally this is an athlete who's spoken of with her run, but she's also an excellent cyclist, as we're seeing in the Zwift series. Now, it is fun for us to be able to highlight the biking strength of triathletes, because generally we're seeing people swim, bike, run. So somebody like an Anthony Costas, we don't get to highlight his cycling prowess in a triathlon in quite the same way we can when we have a single sport event like this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. It's different disciplines. It gives triathletes that have great cycling ability the chance to shine. And someone that's definitely taken advantage of that is on screen right now. Ruth pushing 300 watts, no big deal, 5.5 watts per kilo, just nice and smooth, sneaking off the front of the group in front of Melanie Moore now, 4.5 seconds. And it is a steep climb. I'd say Melanie Moore is a little bit better at the longer, more sustained climbs, and I'd say that Ruth is probably better at the shorter, steeper climbs, but I still think Melanie has a chance, if she's within 3 or 4 seconds, to bridge up to Ruth. So I think Ruth really needs to stay on the gas, as she has just a few kilometers to go till we start that climb.
No, definitely. But also keep in mind, Melanie is looking at the overall leaderboard, and she probably feels pretty comfortable with where she is. She's not feeling necessarily under threat for the overall series based on what's happening out in the course right now.
No, I think that's a great point, Sarah. That's why we have you, just to bring the knowledge. I'm missing it, and you bring it right there. But no, great point. She's a racer, but she definitely knows she's kind of got it in the bag to a certain extent, depending unless Emma Pallant makes a big move. But right now, Emma's riding in 13th place, so it doesn't look like too much for Melanie to worry about. And that gap is consistently opening up 7 seconds. But on screen, Paula Finlay, again, having great performances in the crits. 2 weeks she's won the Finnish sprint in the crit. So awesome work from Paula as she trains up in Canmore, I believe, putting in the big effort there. But right now, Annabelle Luxford on screen. She's riding in 7th place, just in front of Paula Finlay, who we just saw, and she is just on the wheel of Imogen Simmons, and they are coming up on Jackie Herring in 5th place. So quite a battle for 5th place with Jackie Herring, Imogen Simmons, and Annabelle Luxford on screen. Been super stoked, as I've said a few times, on the performances that Annabelle has put in so far this series.
Yeah, she's really done an incredible job this series. It's been exciting to watch her. Just again, super consistent athlete. I will not lie, I didn't realize that she was going to be quite as punchy on the sprints. That's, again, we don't get to see these athletes do this sort of thing in triathlons. There are no intermediate sprints or finish line sprints in a triathlon. So to be able to present these opportunities for athletes to be able to show their range really is quite special. And Annabelle, kudos to you. You got some high-end power, huh?
She certainly
First thing in the morning.
Certainly does. Yeah, early again, it would be hard for me.
Yeah, no, keep in mind, these athletes are all around the world. So for somebody like Laura Philipp, who's on screen right now, it's pretty late right now. You want to start thinking about winding down, going to bed if you're based in Europe. But here she is putting out a max time trial effort. Hopefully she can settle down, no problem, after she takes a shower and refuels a little bit. Incredibly strong athlete. One of the strongest cyclists in our sport. it has been a real pleasure to watch her really come to her own on this platform. This is not familiar to her. Again, our next round of Zwift Tri Racing, it'll be interesting to see if she's able to take what she's learned from this time and build upon it and get in the mix a little bit more, because somebody with her physiology, her power, I think she can, as she warms up to the platform, can do some really, really special things.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it looks like she's warming up on this last stage herself. She's definitely been the big mover in the last kilometer or a few kilometers, as she's now in third place, 20 seconds back, just 7 seconds behind Melanie Marr. And what that also tells you, Sarah, is that Ruth Assel is completely dropping the field at this point. She has a 14-second gap now over Melanie Marr, so she's putting in a huge effort. But on screen, Imogen Simmons continuing to move as well. She's now in 5th place, just moved in front of Jackie Herring, and she is now 4 seconds behind Angela Nath. Imogen Simmons, also an athlete we were super stoked to see join us, and has definitely been learning as she goes. And here's the view of Jackie Herring trying to get back to the wheel of Imogen Simmons. But Sarah, it's about game time. We're 1.7K from the finish, which means they are 0.3 kilometers from the start of this climb. Who's going to be the big mover on this climb?
Oh, the big mover. I thought you were going to ask me who's going to win the stage, and I'm putting my money on Ruth, Okay. I feel like that's a fair bet at this point, with a 16-second lead going into the last 1.5 kilometers. Who's going to be the big mover? I think Laura Phillips going to chip into that gap a little bit. Sure, why not? Okay. How about you? What's your guess here?
You love it when I put you on the spot.
I
big
don't.
Mover. No, you don't. I'm going to say it's Imogen Simmons. I think she's going to move up. She's coming across. Looks like she just got across Jackie, and she's coming up to Angela Nath. But, yeah, I think you're right. Laura Phillip is 5 seconds now behind the woman we see on screen, Melanie Marr. And to your point, Melanie Marr, you're an athlete. You try your best. She's certainly going to give it her all, but she knows she has the series mostly sewn up at this point. So if Laura Phillip comes over her, there's not a huge disadvantage or negative impact on Melanie. So I'm interested to see that race. But as those two battle out, Ruth Assel still moving away. She got another 2 seconds.
Yeah, super impressive. But Melanie Marr, you got to give this woman so much credit. She's been so consistent and just putting herself in the mix in these stages for 3 weeks. And it's not easy. She's also been doing the Monday Premier racing. So goodness knows what other kind of training she's doing. This woman is racing at least twice a week in this platform. Very fit, shows familiarity with the game, and really is set the bar pretty high for these triathletes. Now, my question is, what's happening in the overall leaderboard right now behind Melanie? We've spent so much time focusing on her. I think we're going to see some big movement. I think we're going to see something akin to Jackson Laundry, moving his way up into third. And we are just not paying attention, Matt. We are dropping the ball right now.
Yeah,
we're not good at math.
It's mostly because
we're too busy talking.
I'm bad at math. I'm bad at math, and I'm honest about it, and I'm upfront about it. So we'll see. We'll get that. We'll have the heads at Zwift headquarters make sure they get those points to us as quickly as we can. But right now, we see a great shot of Ruth in the last 650 meters in the Rising Empire course. She's almost there. She's going to get another stage win, 15 seconds right now over Melanie Marr. Laura Phillip is 19 seconds back. Doesn't look like she's going to be able to pull back Melanie, but Imogen Simmons has taken over Angela Nath, and Jackie Herring has moved into 5th place as well. So it looks like Angela Nath struggling a little bit with the gradient of this final steep climb as they go into the last stage of the ZPro Tri-Series. And again, I think we're seeing the fatigue. I mean, we're 3 races a week, 3 weeks in a row, and this is the last one, individual time trial. It's a brutal way to finish. There's no hiding. But right now, Laura Phillip in 3rd place behind Melanie Marr and Ruth Assel, who is now just 300 meters from the finish there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That cumulative fatigue will really, really do a number on you. An athlete we haven't talked much about this series, Kelsey Withrow, is in 10th. You know,
Yeah.
again, the fact that we aren't talking about these really strong athletes, it does go to show exactly how deep these fields are. So Ruth Assel, right, she can see the finish line. 100 meters to go. What a day for this athlete.
Yeah, great result from her. Here we go. She's coming across the finish line. Big race right now for 4th and 5th position. Imogen Simmons, Jackie Herring is fighting back, and they were within a half a second of each other. And as you said, Sarah, we've been ignoring it mostly because we're bad at math, but all of these races have implications. I do think we're going to see some movement in the overall, but somebody who definitely isn't getting moved from that number 1 bib position was who just crossed the finish line. Melanie Moore is going to take the win, no doubt. Imogen Simmons doing her best to try to stay away from Jackie Herring, and it looks like she's going to be able to do that. Laura Phillip already crossed the finish line. Here we go, Jackie Herring coming across the line. Again, been impressed with Jackie, and her Zwift racing experience has definitely paid off in this series as we see a group of 3, which looks like Annabelle Luxford, Paula Finlay, Amelia Rose Watkinson, and Angela Nath ending up in 9th place across the finish line.
Yeah, what a day for these athletes. You know, it did change the dynamics a little bit, I think, having a shorter climb. But again, you know, this is on top of 2 other stages today, 2 other weeks of racing. So by now, I'm sure these athletes were probably pretty grateful that they didn't have an incredibly long last stage with a grinding climb.
I think you're probably right. I don't expect us to get any thank you notes, but I bet in their head there is relief that it wasn't a long, brutal climb. But there we go. Another athlete coming across the finish line, Lisa Norden, as we've said, super talented on the bike as well, obviously as an Olympic medalist as well. So they're all coming across the finish line, and as we said, we're going to get our points for this stage, but we're frantically tabulating. Abacus are all over the place trying to figure out whose points are going to. What's the plural of abacus, Sarah? Do you know?
Abakai? I don't know.
Anyways, I digress.
Ruth We're going to get some messages for that.
We are, for sure. But yeah, congratulations where they're due. Ruth finishing first place in the last mass start non-drafting time trial over Melanie Moore. Laura Phillip, great performance, finishing in 3rd over Imogen Simmons, and Jackie Herring in 5th place. So again, lots of points up for grabs today. And again, I think we're going to see some movement in the overall standings, but definitely Melanie Moore. And one we don't see on screen, Sarah, was Emma Pallant. She finished in 12th position. So she's going to lose a fair amount of points in that. So she might end up dropping out of that 2nd place position, depending. Again, if I was better at math, I'd be doing this in my head, but I'm not. So that's where we're at. We're going to deal with it. But we might see that here in a second as we see our point totals.
Yeah, we'll definitely be seeing some movement in our overall series leaderboard after today. You know, oh, here we have race totals. So Melanie Moore, 64 points. Woo. Paula Finlay, 53. Ruth Assel, 51. So some really strong efforts going in. It pays to be consistent. Absolutely. Whew.
It certainly does. And it looks like, you know, Emma was able to get 4th on the day still. So we'll see if she moves around too much. I don't think that's going to see her move from 2nd place, but we'll see just in a moment. But racer of the day, besides Melanie Moore, obviously she continues to dominate, but Paula Finlay with a great performance, getting 2nd place points on the day, and the ever aggressive Ruth Assel with the final stage win and 3rd place on today as far as points go.
Now, definitely some exciting racing from the women. I think probably their legs are trembling. They are tired. They're probably pretty excited that they don't have to come back next week and do an all-out effort. Well, 3 all-out efforts essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we go. We're going to have the series point totals. It's going to be as much of a surprise to me as it is to y'all here at home. So it does look like Melanie Moore held on for first, as we knew. Emma Pallant did as well. The mover was Paula Finley, is now in third place. Laura Siddall with a great performance, finishing in fourth. Amelia Rose Watkinson holds on to fifth. And Ruth Assel, as much as she tried, she's just outside of the top 5, but in this field, amazing performance to get 6. Meredith Kessler, one that's always consistent, in 7th. Annabelle Luxford, one of our favorites. We have no favorites. We love them all, but Annabelle putting in great effort for 8th, and Laura Phillip moved up in a tie for 9th with Angela Nath. Look at that. And so it didn't kind of move around as much as I thought it might. Sarah, how about you?
I don't know. I went in today having no preconceived notions other than thinking that Melanie had a good chance of carrying the win. Again, you realize that every day matters. You can't have an off day. You can possibly bounce back from an off stage, but yeah, it's if you haven't had 3 consistent weeks in a row, you're not going to be battling it out for a podium position. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I'm still kind of looking at the points going into today, but for me, the big mover was obviously Paula Finley had great performance to move from 5th to 3rd, and then Ruth was able to jump as well. So great performances by those 2 athletes. And I think Paula Finley, she had goals for each stage, and she let kind of the races develop. And for her, clearly the important thing was using that sprint at the finish of those stages, and she was able to move in on the podium. And I would say those athletes have had some, as we said, some pretty good training going into their final race of the series, Challenge Daytona, just over a week.
Yeah, Paula, very smart, very calculating athlete, but you have to be able to deliver. So it's one thing to say, all right, I'm going for the stage win, the big sprint, but to be able to do it with this stiff competition, you can try to go for everything and see what sticks, or you can really back yourself, understand your strengths and weaknesses, and maximize wherever you can. But ultimately, if you don't have the legs, you're not going to be in the mix.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing, right? We're talking about tactics, and we're talking about, oh, we should do this in this race or do this in this race. But in the end, we're talking about 20 of the best athletes on the planet in triathlon in these very, very short races with very short race or very short rest in between, all while you're training for other events, right? So in the end, your legs have to be there for you to be able to make these choices. And what do you think was the biggest lesson maybe learned, or maybe what you noticed in this series as far as the difficulty of those 3 races back to back to back?
Well, like I said, you really can't have an off day. It just goes to show you have to do your homework. You have to understand your strengths and weaknesses, and you have to have that baseline fitness to be able to have the consistency. So, it's one thing to have an incredible stage, knock it out of the park, but if you can't have the other 2 stages on that day similarly good at like keeping you in the mix, you may not be in contention for overall series. So it's one thing to shine on a stage. You really have to, if you want to do this, you have to approach it as a 3-week series and have to be well trained to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's a great point. And I think for those athletes that maybe didn't perform up to their expectations, what they can do is they can look at Anthony Costas and they can look at Melanie Moore, because those 2 athletes dominated all the way throughout. And it was, they put on a clinic to a certain extent. Like they were just that consistent, as you said, and the way they approached the races clearly paid off. And in the end, they dominated.
Yeah, I think they do their homework. They understand the courses, they understand the competition and how to maximize, every little bit. So it's the timing of using your power-ups. It's being able to use your energy accordingly, based on the stages and not just doing complete flyers. Although we do love those. We do love the breakaways. But maybe next time rounds, athletes who are continuously going for the breakaways being a slightly more calculating about it. But then again, that's racing. It's sometimes those big risk efforts yield good big rewards, and it makes it a lot more fun for us. Just saying.
No, it makes it super super exciting, and we appreciate those efforts. And I will say thanks to all the athletes for giving us a shot and taking a chance kind of on this crazy series, and that puts everybody in a position that they're not necessarily used to. It's very different racing than these athletes are used to, and we appreciate them coming on and racing with us. And congratulations to Anthony Costas and Melanie Moore for taking the victories in the series. And Sarah, I will say it has been an absolute pleasure calling these races with you.
It's always fun, Matt. Thanks for taking me along for the ride. And I would do it again. I would do it again. We can hang out.
Okay, deal. That is news that brightens my day for sure. And thanks to you all for listening or watching us and watching the series and supporting your favorite pro triathletes as they race here in the ZPro Tri Series. And we'll have another one coming down the road, so keep an eye on Zwift so when we announce kind of our next series. But until then, ride on.